I have to think of a proper intro. Hey guys, and welcome back to Myth Monday. This is a series where every Monday, in theory, we go through and we watch some myths and we give our reactions to it. Reacting to overly sarcastic productions again. Shout out to them. They are awesome. But yeah, let's get right into it. Our first myth is the Wrath of Demeter.
There are a lot of stories with environmental messages. There's been a bit of an uptick since the advent of man-made climate change gave us a whole new form of species-wide guilt to sublimate through storytelling, but the concept of man versus nature is a tale as old as time, and the moral element of nature good or at least not to be messed with is just as old. Modern environmental narratives tend to focus more on how important it is to protect nature and how terrible it is to harm it on a widespread scale, but a lot of those stories are grounded in more modern concepts like nuclear damage or anthropogenic climate change. Sometimes harming nature is its own punishment, and a world critically damaged by foolhardy humans becomes deeply unpleasant for those humans and their descendants to live in. In some other stories, nature takes a slightly more active role in defending itself, or failing that, avenging itself. Whatever the flavor, the general consensus is that it's never wise to pick a fight with the biosphere you live in, since no matter who wins, you eventually lose. And you'll be happy to know that this general concept dates as far back as ancient Greece. So today let's talk about a short, sweet, and ridiculously unnerving tale of what exactly the Wrath of Demeter looks like. Now, this story, like many others, is recounted in Ovid's Metamorphoses, and it begins, like so many do, with a king. The protagonist of our story is King Erysichthon, and he's kicking things off with a bang by clear-cutting Demeter's sacred grove. The reason behind this questionable choice is never explained, not that it would help, because this grove is like mondo sacred. It's where all the dryads like to hang out and party, and it's like deep wilderness. At the heart of the grove is a...
Okay. Whatever happens to this guy is justified. No, I don't care. Like, sometimes I have to admit, the gods tend to go a wee bit far in these myths. But nah, what we're starting off with whatever happens to this guy, I'm not feeling bad. No.
Massive ancient oak tree covered in garlands and prayer tablets and a big flashing neon sign that says "Do not kill." Erysichthon's workers aren't exactly jazzed about the thought of knocking it down, so Erysichthon grabs an axe and forges in to do it himself, and further paints a target on his back by loudly declaring that not only is he going to cut down this tree, he'd do the same thing even if that tree was Demeter herself. At the first strike of the axe, the tree starts bleeding, which Erysichthon takes as a great sign and keeps chopping. Right before
He said it's a great. I'm sorry if a tree starts bleeding, like I'm so sorry, Mr. Tree or Miss Tree, or they tree. I apologize. Like I can get you a Band-Aid. I can get you some nice fertilizer too for your troubles. Like I greatly apologize for making you bleed like that. Cause no tree should ever be bleeding at the swing of an axe. Like that's freaky. Like if you just picture that in your mind, that's freaky.
Before the tree gives up the ghost, it speaks and tells the assembled mortals that it is in fact a dryad, beloved by Demeter herself, and Erysichthon's ass is proverbially grass. The tree dies, the people move on, and the dryads, who saw the whole thing, book it to Demeter to fill her in. Now, Demeter's none too pleased about the loss of her sacred grove and her favorite dryad, so she spends some time mulling over what exactly to do to this idiot, and settles on a particularly unsettling plan. She sends a nymph up to the frozen, barren wastelands of northern Scythia to transmit a message to Limos, the goddess of starvation, whose nature is so antithetical to Demeter that they literally physically can't get near it.
It's a goddess of starvation. I didn't even know that. Like I know there's like a god for everything, but like a goddess of starvation, like I gotta look into these minor goddesses and minor gods because they get pretty like obscure and interesting.
Each other. The nymph quickly tells Limos that Demeter's asked her to inflict a curse on King Erysichthon, and then the nymph books it before Limos' divine vibes can starve her skeletal. Limos is always down for a little mischief, so she heads over to Erysichthon's palace, slips in at night, and super casually inflicts him with the curse of eternal hunger. Then she heads home to put on the new season of Bake Off while Erysichthon dreams of magnificent feasts and wakes up absolutely ravenous. Now, as king, Erysichthon has plenty of access to delicious foods of all varieties, but no matter how much he eats, he's never satisfied, and in fact just gets more hungry the more he consumes. In desperation to buy more and more food, he ends up draining his treasury and selling off his possessions. He even ends up selling his daughter Mestra, who's none too pleased about her new situation and calls in a favor from Poseidon as payback for him deflowering her back in the day, which as we all know by now happened with alarming frequency. And Poseidon evidently feels real bad about this one because he grants her the power of full-on shapeshifting, which she uses to escape. Erysichthon sees this as a golden opportunity and makes a pretty solid racket out of selling his daughter over and over again while she uses her shapeshifting to escape every time. But
Way to backfire. That that was supposed to help her. I mean, I guess it did help her, but like now now she's just like getting you. At least we know this king is smart.
Of course, this does nothing to help with the actual curse, and eventually Erisicthon is so overwhelmed with his ravenous hunger that he just fully eats himself. Alive. Practical takeaway from this whole debacle? Hell if I know, but this is definitely the anecdote Demeter likes to tell when Hades comes over for family dinner and game night. I see.
Yeah, no. That's kind of diabolical. I actually okay. Maybe I'm just a sociopath, but that seemed pretty tame considering like like he did die and it wasn't pretty. But like I feel like the meter could have done a little better. Like inflicting internal hunger, like I don't how do I word this in a way that doesn't make me sound like a maniac? Apollo has rained down plagues of arrows that bring plagues to entire cities for far less. And this guy gets a single like targeted like no, screw you, you're cursed now. Like I feel like he got off easily. I feel like he got off real easily. I don't know. But yeah, moving on, we have the Minotaur. Everyone knows him. Everyone loves him. But let's see what Overly Sarcastic Productions has to say about him.
Pro tip, character designers, if you're struggling to come up with a monster design, try just mashing random animals together. Satisfaction guaranteed, works every time. Ancient Greece was certainly a big fan of the concept, as basically every monster in the mythos is either regular person or animal with a non-standard number of limbs, heads, or eyes, or two or more animals mashed together. It's usually not even explained why they're like.
It's also usually a snake. Like, I don't know what was up with the ancients and their snakes, but half of the monsters had some form like a snake's tail, or like their lower half was a snake, or like they had a tail but the tail was itself a snake. I don't know. I don't know who designed this, but like yeah.
Like that. Why is the offspring of Poseidon and Medusa a horse with wings? Who knows? Why do Typhon and Echidna, two mostly humanoid, somewhat snaky monsters, produce several multi-headed dogs and one perfect combo of goat, snake, and lioness? Primordial genetics is funky like that. And geez, the Minotaur? What unholy union could have made a half bull, half dude? Well, actually, that one is pretty straightforward, but you're not gonna like it. Now, contextually, the Minotaur is a kind of mysterious figure because the Minoan civilization he's derived from is pretty unknown in a lot of ways. It was a powerful Bronze Age civilization that flourished on the island of Crete from 3000 BCE to about 1100 BCE, and it's not 100% clear.
I have to say I love how they I let me finish one thought before I go to the next thought. I love how they go into like history and like explain like history, like historical stuff in the context of what they're talking about. I love my channel. Like I am obviously very biased, but like one thing I don't do, I don't meddle in damn. I don't meddle in history. I'm here to talk about like modern day worship of Hellenism. And like yeah, there are some historical aspects to it to like obviously like yeah. Like it's an ancient religion. It's gonna bring up history, but like I try to stay away from like history because that's a whole other can of worms. Like to actually like to know what you're talking about in Hellenism and then know what you're talking about in like the Hellenistic period is two very different things. And I am nowhere near the latter. I might one day be able to like explain to people stuff about that, but like it's not really relevant. Like I mean it's relevant, but you get what I mean. You get what I mean. And if you don't get what I mean, you're probably leaving an angry comment already saying yeah, I'm confusing. But yeah, that's what I get for recording a Myth Monday at 1 a.m.
what caused it to fall apart, but it super fell apart. So hard, we didn't even know it existed until 1900. We have tons of their relics and architecture and stuff, and also a lot of their writing, but unfortunately, we can't understand any of it. Yep, it's all in linear A and mysterious hieroglyphs, and we can't read any of them. So we kind of have no idea what they were up to. But because of their extensive trade network, plenty of civilizations we can understand were influenced by them, and we have lots of myths and stories and maybe even some gods that seem to have been originally derived from the largely unknown Minoan religion. Now, basically everything about that is pure speculation. But if there's one thing we can say with confidence, it's that bulls show up a lot. Not minotaurs, though. While bull-headed humans show up in Greek art about Crete, Minoan art itself only ever shows regular bulls. The Minotaur is a specifically Greek story about the ancient Minoans, referencing their widespread bull symbolism by peppering in bulls and bull accessories at regular intervals. It also frames the mythologized Minoan civilization in a generally antagonistic role, possibly because of all the forced oceanic trade, also known as piracy. So basically, it's biased, filtered, and offset from the source by several centuries, but we have nothing else to go on because we can't read their language. Let this be a PSA. Don't let languages die, kids. You're gonna really annoy scholars in like 3,000 years. So anyway, the tale of the Minotaur begins with King Minos of Crete, the son of Zeus and Europa. So we're already off to a roaring start in the functional relationships department. In order to prove that he's a bad enough dude to rule Crete instead of his brothers Rhadamanthus or Sarpedon, Minos calls in a favor from Poseidon, who sends him a beautiful snow-white bull, with the understanding that Minos is gonna sacrifice the bull to him afterwards as thanks. Everyone is super impressed with this stake in the making, and Minos becomes king, but he's just so impressed with this bull that he refuses to sacrifice it and swaps it out for a way lamer, super less hot bull. Poseidon is enraged by this slight, so he slips Aphrodite a 20 to get her to make Minos' wife Pasiphae fall in love with the bull. What could go wrong? But unlike Pasiphae, the Cretan bull has very high standards. First of all, being a quadruped is a must. Second of all, must also be a cow. Fortunately, from a certain point of view, acclaimed architect, inventor, and future part-time aeronaut Daedalus happens to be on Crete at the time, so Pasiphae commissions him to make her a hollow wooden cow suit for recreational.
You know, as someone that knows many artists that have done weird ass commissions, I can't even side-eye that. I can't even side-eye that because I have heard stories. You know, people who have talents in art and in like creativity, they've seen some shit. Not of their own volition, but of the stuff that people commission them to do. And I'm leaving that there.
Purposes. Daedalus, consummate professional that he is, takes the commission with zero outward judging, and I'm just gonna skip over this part because, come on, we get it. Oh hey, where'd that thing come from? So the Minotaur, as the child abomination of a truly beastly relationship, doesn't really have a place in the natural order of things, which unfortunately means he can't really eat anything besides people. Tragic. Rather than, I don't know, killing him or letting him starve or something, Minos consults the oracle at Delphi, who tells him to build that sucker a lavish basement apartment and then throw away the key. Daedalus—
Oh my gosh, the Oracle of Delphi? What is that? I should go look at the video that will be linked in the end cards of this video. Do you really understand Apollo? Because I talk about the Oracle of Delphi.
scores another commission when Minos asks him to build an absolutely massive labyrinth for the Minotaur. Then, to make sure nobody learns how the labyrinth works, Minos locks Daedalus up in a tower with Icarus, 5 tons of supplies, and every tool ever made. That ought to hold him, but that's a story for, 4 years ago, apparently. So anyway, with the Minotaur functionally imprisoned in a really big, impossibly complicated maze, that fixes the potential rampage problem, but still leaves the whole food issue kind of up in the air. But what's the point in being king if you can't be kind of a dick about it? The exact justifications vary from telling to telling, but long story short, Minos demands a human sacrifice of 14 young Athenians every few years to keep the Minotaur fed. This goes smoothly for the first couple sacrifices, but on the third go-round, this whole Minotaur human sacrifice situation draws the attention of a spunky young hero aiming to prove himself. Specifically Theseus, Athens' founder hero and official best boy, which really reflects more poorly on Athens than anything else. Anywho, Theseus brings big cool boat—
Wait a second. I don't know much about Theseus. What was that?
Boy, which really—
Kidnapped 12-year-old Helen of Troy so he could marry her. Accidentally made his father kill him because he forgot to swap his sails like an absolute cretin. Abandoned the girl who saved his life and loved him on an island. Had his son, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, killed because he's a he's a gullible idiot. I couldn't figure out how to read the word gullible. That just shows that you shouldn't record Myth Mondays at 1 in the morning.
He reflects more poorly on Athens than anything else. Anywho, Theseus brings a big cool boat and plenty of gumption, but not much in the way of a plan. So it's lucky for him that Minos' daughter Ariadne takes one look at this new cute boy and goes full head over heels for him, possibly because she doesn't get out much. Now, Ariadne is very familiar with the labyrinth. In fact, in one early citation of the story mentioned in the Iliad, it suggested the original version of Daedalus' labyrinth was built specifically for Ariadne as a dancing path with no Minotaur involved. Mythologically, Ariadne and the labyrinth go way back, maybe even farther back than the Minotaur. And some people theorize Ariadne is actually originally some kind of Cretan goddess known as the Mistress of the Labyrinth, which is dope as all hell, but not what we're here for. Ariadne helps Theseus out by giving him a ball of thread called a clue that'll let him retrace his path out of the labyrinth, and Theseus makes his way down with her guidance, eventually finding the Minotaur and engaging it in totally rad combat until he manages to decapitate it. You're welcome, Minos. And so ends the tale of the Minotaur. Surprisingly, well, I think it's surprising anyway, Minos doesn't seem too happy to have his monster problem fixed, and Theseus and Ariadne book it out of Crete along with the other Athenians. But for whatever reason, later retconned as divine intervention, but originally just kind of a huge dick move, Theseus totally ditches Ariadne and leaves her alone on the shores of Naxos while she sleeps. Fortunately, when she wakes up, her grief and betrayal is mitigated somewhat by the fact that Dionysus himself shows up to help her out and also maybe propose or something because he thinks she's really cute. And they end up getting married and living very happy immortal lives together up on Olympus. While in contrast, Theseus' love life goes not well. What with all the kidnapping and personally pissing off Hades and such. Yeesh, javelin dodged. Moral of the story?
Javelin dodged indeed. How do you piss off Hades? Okay, like pissing off Zeus, right? That is terrifying. That's a terrifying thought. Pissing off Poseidon, borderline worse. Debatably worse. Now, pissing off Hades. Now, why would you go and piss off Hades? Like, what? How? What? I'm going to have to look up what even happened after this recording is done, because that just intrigues me. Like, he's just a chill guy. What would you possibly do to? People in these myths are really stupid. Like, there's one theme about these myths is that basically just don't be a dumbass and don't piss off the gods for no reason. Like even in the beginning, he had no reason in the beginning of this myth. He had no reason to just sacrifice the bull. Like, he's told Poseidon he was gonna sacrifice the bull, and you think you just won't notice that you swapped it out with another bull? Like, okay, tangent over, whatever.
Probably, keep your promises, be true to your responsibilities, and, oh yeah, stop boning animals. Jeez, guys. I'm all out of love.
Yeah. Okay, for the last myth of the day, we have the fearsome, the terrifying, the powerful Typhon. Yeah, I'm not tired. You're tired.
Ah, Zeus. You were so promising back in the day. Freeing your siblings, overthrowing your tyrannical father Kronos, casting the Titans into Tartarus, becoming Lord of the Heavens, and ruling the ancient world with wisdom you got from absorbing your first wife. That's such a strong start for the heroic king of the gods. And sure, you married your sister, but that was traditional for gods. It could have been way worse. And then you spent centuries screwing with humanity, punishing Prometheus for trying to help them out, commissioning Pandora specifically to screw them over, and systematically having sex with as much of the female population as you could manage by any means necessary. I mean, you're the king of the gods, Lord of Thunder. You have a killer aesthetic. I want you to be cool. You have so much going for you. But there's only so much I can respect a god who routinely turns himself into livestock specifically for the purpose of boning unsuspecting humans. Some days I just really want to see you get your ass kicked. So in the early days of ancient Greece, Zeus and the fam had just overthrown Kronos and cast the Titans into Tartarus, and by all accounts, Gaia wasn't too happy about her last batch of children getting slam-dunked into the underworld sewage outflow pipe. Now, because the modern image of Mother Nature is generally positive and nurturing, it can be easy to forget that personality-wise, Gaia covered all of nature. You know, storms, volcanoes, earthquakes, landslides. There's plenty of nice, happy tree stuff happening on the side, but in Greek mythology, Gaia mostly makes monsters, and this story is no exception.
Yeah, that is a good point. That is a good point. A lot of people are like, Gaia is like caring and nurturing and motherly and all this positive stuff. Well, not like and all of these like good things. With nature, you have to take the good with the bad. There's nature's scary. Nature's very scary. Like it's also like beautiful. Like nature's beautiful. Nature is kind and gentle and, well, I wouldn't say gentle. Nature's a lot of things. It's not just all pretty stuff. But yeah, that's my point.
With Tartarus itself as the father, Gaia gives birth to the monstrous Typhon, a kaiju-sized eldritch abomination with loads of heads, flaming eyes, and just a whole bunch of snakes. Now, Typhon is unironically the biggest threat in Greek mythology. While primordial titans like Gaia and Uranos were physically bigger, they also had a lot less agency and didn't tend to directly oppose the gods. And while there were monsters aplenty, most of them were small enough that they could be taken down by one hero at a time, with maybe the bare minimum of divine assistance or the occasional flying horse. Typhon is in a weight class of his own. Physically huge and incredibly powerful, Typhon is more like a force of nature than a monster. He also plays into the Greek mythological succession cycle, where each ruler of the cosmos is successively overthrown by a new generation of gods. With Kronos defeating Uranos and Zeus defeating Kronos, Typhon is next in the lineup to take down Zeus and become the new ruler of the world. But before he starts off on any of the god fighting, the first thing he does is he goes and shacks up with the monstrous half-beautiful nymph, half-giant snake called Echidna. It's not her fault, guys. It was her name first. Anyway, Typhon and Echidna have a bunch of monster babies, including the Chimera, the Hydra, the Sphinx, the Nemean Lion, and Kerberos. With that out of the way, and plenty of antagonists established for future generations of heroes to fight, Typhon marches towards Olympus to smack down some gods. Now, in a couple versions of the story, the Olympians are so spooked by this fire-breathing Godzilla-sized snake monster that they shapeshift into animals and run away all the way to Egypt, which is a little random until you notice that Artemis turns into a cat, Hermes turns into an ibis, Zeus turns into a ram, and yeah, basically, this is a little bit of early syncretism. It's specifically the ancient Greek explanation for why the Egyptians worshipped animal gods. As far as they were concerned, Bast was cat Artemis, Thoth was ibis Hermes, Amun was ram Zeus, etc. Pretty neat. But Zeus waits just long enough for the Egyptian artists to get his good side before turning back and hucking some lightning bolts at Typhon, driving the monster back before getting in close with an adamantine sickle. But when Zeus goes in for the kill, Typhon surprise grapples him and turns the tables by ripping out his tendons like he's a misbehaving chicken leg. So with Zeus's strength now roughly on par with a spaghetti plate, Typhon tosses him into a cave along with all of his loose tendons, and sets the half-beautiful nymph, half-enormous f*** you dragon Delphine to guard it. Surprisingly, she's apparently got no relation to Echidna, the other half-lady, half-snake thing in the story. Anyway, then Typhon wanders off to presumably do giant monster things like knocking over buildings and breathing fire. But luckily, unlike every other overthrown king of the cosmos, Zeus doesn't need to languish for long, as Hermes and Pan sneak into the cave, retrieve his tendons, and restring him like the world's horniest ukulele. Now back at full power and presumably very annoyed, Zeus charges off after Typhon and a truly epic battle commences. Earthquakes, volcanoes, fire everywhere, thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening me, you know, the works. Eventually, Zeus's thunderous assault wears Typhon down, and when he tries to run, Zeus responds with his characteristic sportsmanship and drops a mountain on his head. This produces the famous Mount Etna, one of the world's most active stratovolcanoes, and supposedly also the home to Hephaestus's forges, which seems like a bit of a workplace hazard.
That's kind of funny, but yeah, that's so cool. Like, oh my gosh, like I feel like someone, I don't know who, I don't know if anyone that's qualified to do this is watching this, but bro, we need a Hellenism themed anime, bro. Just hear me out. Hellenism themed anime, and then you have all the myths, and then you make it into one cohesive storyline. I guess that would defeat the purpose of the myth, because the myths aren't supposed to be a cohesive storyline. It's supposed to be like you take lessons from it. They're supposed to be like symbolic, like not literal. Most of them, anyways. Most of them aren't supposed to be literal. But yeah, I guess making it a cohesive storyline would defeat the purpose of it. But still, it would be really freaking cool to see like an actual like movie or like show, and then Zeus is like fighting Typhon. Like that'd be cool. I don't know. I'm just being a nerd for a second. Let me move on. Let me wrap up this video.
Not gonna lie. Takes a lot of work to beat out the inherent dangers of working in an active volcano, but an imprisoned mega kaiju in the next room over manages it pretty handily. Anyway, Typhon's imprisonment is used to explain why Mount Etna is always getting the rumblies, and he's also credited with being responsible for the world's ill winds that cause bad weather or bring storms. And fun fact, despite what one might assume, this is not actually the origin of the word typhoon, since while the etymologies are similar, typhoons don't happen in Europe, only in Asia. The word itself seems to have originated with the Chinese word for big wind, then been reinforced by the Arabic word for cyclonic storm, and finally lightly spiced with the Greek word typhon when it made the jump into English. I think the lesson here is that the real monster was the English language all along. Black hole sun, won't you...
Okay, that was pretty cool. That was pretty interesting. I didn't have much to say about that last video because it was just action. It was just the gods being cool, like badasses. But like, yeah, that was today's Myth Monday. I will try to do it more often because it's like I never said it was supposed to be every Monday, but I feel like I should do it more often. Like just a little more often, cause you guys crushed it with the last Myth Monday. Like, if I forget what the exact stats are, but we got like 300 views, and like, you guys went crazy. So yeah, if we can see the same thing for this Myth Monday, like just hit the like button, watch all the way to the end, share it with a friend, like do whatever you gotta do, but make this one blow up too. But yeah, that's about it for today's Myth Monday. Tune in next Friday for my my video on miasma, and hopefully I didn't just jinx myself to not finish it, but I will try my best to finish it. So because this is gonna come out on Monday, on Friday, that's when the miasma video is gonna come out. So you will learn all about cleansing and miasma and catharmos and all that good stuff. But yeah, let me stop rambling. Laters. Join my Discord.
Let's see what you got. Let's go. Eyes roll when you fuck to the tempo. If you want me to need me, you got me. Just make sure you got in the memo. Playing the game calls my first bite. If you cross me, your man's a dead hoe. Eyes up here, walk up, and you know heads turn when you fucking my demos.